And we are back. I am your host, Jordan Hembrough. This is Hasbro's continued coverage of San Diego Comic-Con 2024. We're coming to you live from the Hasbro Plus streaming studio. Well, do you like things that go bump in the night? Spooky, scary things? Who are you going to call? Well, obviously, the gentleman next to me. These two gentlemen, I have Patrick and Harry Moore, freelance illustrator Harry Moore. And we're talking all things Ghostbusters today. How are you, gentlemen?
Very good.
Welcome to San Diego Comic-Con. You enjoying the show so far?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
It's been great.
Yeah,
You having a good one?
It's been a trip.
Yeah. It's fun. So we are here talking about nostalgia. We're here talking about our childhood. And, of course, if you were an 80s child, like I was, of course, Ghostbusters was one of the biggest hits of the 1980s. We're talking about the retro Ghostbuster figures. These are the Fright Features. And Patrick, you lead up this design, don't you?
Yeah,
on this team.
I'm on the packaging and do a little dabbling in product design for these Fright Features re-releases. The Ghostbusters is the nearest and dearest to my heart, so I'm just trying to do right by the fans.
So of all the toy lines that came out in the 1980s, all the great, iconic toy lines from Kenner, why Ghostbusters? I mean, what about that line is the sticking point that you said, this is the one that I want to really bring back to the fans?
Yeah, I think if I had to, it was bright, it was colorful. There was so much going on with the Fright Features. It was that mix of scary and cool and fun. And, I had a fearsome flush that I carried everywhere with me. I mean, that's a weird one to gravitate towards, but there was something about it that was so gross and funny and cool that I just, it stuck with me forever.
Yeah. Harry, you've had a long history with Hasbro, haven't you? You've worked on other projects with them.
Yes, I've been working with Hasbro almost 20 years, starting with a Disney Hasbro Mr. Potato Head project years ago, all the way up till things with the Marvel Legends team, and of course here Ghostbusters. So my forte is packaging. So usually I get the call when there's a package that needs some illustration or needs some support graphics. And in this case, where these items are over 30 years old and the originals may not exist, I'm tasked with recreating them.
Yeah. Now, I am an 80s child, so, I go back and harken back to the days of hanging out in my father's advertising agency in the art room. I mean, back in the 80s when these were originally put out, the illustration and everything was done, old school with paints and papers and oil on board and everything. How has that process changed over the years?
It has changed, and I'm not to toot my own horn, but this is one of the things that I'm good at, and I'm dating myself, but I worked at a toy company that used to do things, so I have seen those processes, and I've watched people airbrush streaks on a live illustration. If they mess up, that was permanent. So I've seen true illustration from the 80s, 90s, and that's how I approach it. Yes, I have the computer and it's a tool, but I've used techniques like doing it double size for that reduction that the old illustrations would have gotten, using an airbrush, using masks, and setting my airbrush setting on my Wacom to do a little bit of overspray, and I add some things called noise, so these things look like they may have been done as an illustration 30 years ago.
So what you're doing is you're actually deliberately sort of retro aging them, and you're saying I want to make these look old
and not make them look too perfect.
Yeah, so putting in the imperfections actually is what you want to do.
There were some beautiful flaws where if the frisket lifted up and the airbrush went under, I was okay with that. Meaning, as a kid and as an adult toy packaging illustrator, I want to kind of pay homage to some of that stuff. Those people didn't have computers, and it still looked great. So I don't want it to polish it with the computer. I want it to feel like when I've done my job is when someone on social media says, oh, well, they just use the old Kenner art. I fooled them. Not that I'm trying to fool them, but I did my job because they didn't know the difference.
Yeah, that's a really cool Easter egg, too, for everyone at home. I mean, this is why I love San Diego Comic-Con and coming to conventions like this, sitting down with designers and illustrators like yourselves, because it really does sort of pull the veil away from the process and the whole production process for fans and collectors at home, so everyone can see more of what goes into it. Who knew? Who knew that you purposely do that? which is really great.
That's the first time I've told that. I may have just given away some secrets because I have
It's beautiful.
competition in the industry that would love to be doing these, but I'm lucky because a lot of people at Hasbro have trusted me. There's a trust. They could have called other artists. There are other artists that are out there, but there's a trust that I have with Hasbro. As we said earlier, I do Marvel Legends, Ghostbusters, dabbled in a couple of G.I. Joe and Power Rangers retro items. They're trusting me because that's important that these are right.
And you had said that you worked on other Hasbro brands. Patrick, is that how you came to find and work with Harry in the first place?
Yeah, so I was turned on to Harry's artwork years ago on the games team. So when I started at Hasbro, I was making board games. I was doing all the design work for that. And Harry's name is like a beacon in the hall. Like somebody's like, "Oh, if you need this done, call Harry."
Who are you gonna call?
And
call Harry.
Yeah. And so when I got onto Ghostbusters, it was a no-brainer. It was, let's call Harry. And for the last few years, Harry and I have had an excellent working relationship on bringing a lot of these Kenner retros back to life.
Yeah, and we're talking about Kenner. We're talking about vintage. These were originally released in 1986. How do you guys go about finding one of these? I mean, they're not around anymore. Take me through that process and sort of the trials and tribulations that come along with actually finding something like this.
Yeah, so it starts with an idea of like, oh, hey, can we resurrect this line? Can we do this? And then it's, all right, well, where are the cards? And it's sourcing, the old, where can we find the best in shape cards for some of this? I have a very vast personal library. And then
your own collection?
Yep.
Okay.
What's left of it?
Yeah.
And then Hasbro's got a pretty good selection of things still kicking around the building. And just finding the best source material so we can scan it in. And really just making sure that it's scanned in, it's color corrected, and then it's sent over to Harry so he has everything he needs. And really tracking down stuff that's in the best shape, that's avoided kind of the sun damage or anything like that to make sure the colors are right. Because Harry's extensive research, when he goes into it, it's all matching colors like down to the chip.
Yep. Yeah. And Harry, if you do come across something that has shown the test of time or faded a little bit, is that something you can color correct, during the production process?
Yes. I may have some of these in my collection, or Pat will send them to me. Comparing them, you kind of get a look, okay, this one's a little undersaturated, so I can pump it up, even at the reference stage, to kind of see sun hit it for whatever reason. This looks a little yellow. You pump up the red, you pump up the blue. Yeah, so there's a couple things I do quickly to kind of balance all four of them out in an assortment. So, okay, now I've got that purple. And then I break out the Pantone book. Is like when for people that don't know what that is, it's like picking a paint for your wall. There's a chip, and I lay it right on the package, and I'm like, yep, that's the closest one. And even laying it next to the lettering on the back that says, collect all four, or whatever that may be. So I also try to identify the typefaces and fonts that are used for the call outs and things. So not just the illustration, I'm trying to get everything that would have been done in the 80s for these packs.
Yeah. All right, last question. I'm going to put you guys on the spot.
Oh boy.
You have a favorite character out of the line?
Out of the line, and this is Egon, mostly because everyone that reaches out to me is thankful for Hasbro doing the toys, and I have nothing to do with the toys. I'm just supporting Hasbro with the packaging.
Sure.
But everyone that has an Egon, the tie is broken, and they're so happy that they can get this and leave their Egon mint on card, or their broken Egon from a childhood can now be easily replaced.
Because the tie is broken.
Yeah.
Okay. Pat, favorite character?
We're going Fright Features, favorite character? I mean, it's very specific, but Jailjaw, the ghost.
Okay.
The ghost that comes with Ray is my favorite in the line.
Why?
There's something about the way that it looks, where the mouth is open and you've got the lines in the back. It's just such a fun character design.
Yeah.
And the color, first of all, the colors on this line are incredible from an action figure standpoint. But there's something about Jailjaw that just... It brings me right back to when I was a kid, sitting on the floor in the living room in front of the TV, playing with these toys. It just brings me right back there.
I absolutely love it. Okay, Real Ghostbusters figures from Hasbro, available now at specialty comic shops and on the website hasbro.com.
I think it's on Hasbro Pulse.
HasbroPulse.com. Check them out. We'll see you soon. Join us for continued coverage of San Diego Comic-Con 2024 from the Hasbro booth coming up right now.